Hello and welcome to the BTS Creative Academy podcast. We're currently here live streaming across YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram with Alexa Elmy, and we're here to discuss her play, which is about to hit the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in a few weeks' time. Alexa Play. I'm frightened of saying that in case my Alexa goes off.
Oh gosh, you have
I-
one?
Yes, don't we all?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. No, it's so funny, like, whenever I have to Zoom with anyone, they'll say, "Oh, hi, Alexa," and, like, immediately in the background, their devices are going off, and I have to just be like, "I'm sorry."
Okay, and I feel like this might be an obvious question, but is that kind of where this idea for this play came from you having this? It must be very frustrating that technology wakes up every time someone says your name.
Absolutely, although I feel like it honestly came more from the fact that I would introduce myself to people, and the first thing that they would say is to make an Alexa joke, and it just kind of drove me crazy, not crazy, but yeah, I
I can
found it
imagine,
very
yeah.
irritating.
I can imagine.
Um, and so I think, I, like, wanted to make a joke about that, and, um, this was actually, like, prior to the pandemic. I had the initial idea. Um, and then with the pandemic and everything being over Zoom and all of that, now it's more of a, "Oh, we're doing these Zoom meetings and all of that, and I'm setting off everyone's technology."
So you performing this show and you wrote this show as well?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Tell me a little bit more about the original concept for it then. Tell me where that moment of was right, I'm gonna actually turn this frustration, this madness into a play.
So, for me, I always like to say writing is the one thing that is, like, just for me in terms of myself as an artist, like, when you're performing on stage, like, that's for the audience, but so as a playwright, I feel like if I have a great idea and I end up doing something with it, amazing. But I try not to, like, put that pressure on myself in advance, because I just don't think it helps my creative process. So I had the idea, and usually I'll have an idea for something in my mind for a while until it's like, "Okay, I gotta write this down. I gotta start writing it. I can't stop thinking about it." And I actually initially wrote it as a play with a full cast, and it just wasn't working. So and I had done, solo shows before, and I realized it needed to be a solo show, and then it was like the words were just flowing so easily, and I knew exactly the story that I was trying to tell.
Isn't that interesting that when we're writing and we start to discover somewhere within the writing that it's working, that the flow changes, that
Absolutely.
you had this idea before and you was kind of fighting your way through it with the idea when there was a big cast, but as soon as you got to grips with the idea that it's just you, something
Yeah.
changed.
And I mean, it's also, I initially did a staged reading of it in 2022 at the Chain Theater in New York City, and that was really helpful because that was when I did a lot of, like, the development for the show. I had already been through, like, what felt like a million drafts by then, thinking it was all set in stone for that reading, and then once you start actually working the material, um, it kind of unlocked all this new stuff. And then after that, it had placed as a semi-finalist in the Screencraft stage play writing competition. And I between that and the fact that the staged reading had gone so well and everyone's reaction to it was so positive, I thought to myself, "Okay, I've gotta keep going with this. People like it, and it's really fun to work on." So I really felt determined to see it as a fully realized piece. And in the fall, which it's funny, our staged reading was on Halloween, and then when we performed at or I performed at Theater Row, our opening was also on Halloween, which was very funny, and then that sold out, and we ended up getting a second show, which, again, that was another time where I thought it was set in stone. I thought the piece was done, but I did end up making more changes to the script, which I think made it better. They did. They made it better. Um, and now we're preparing for Fringe. So,
And
yeah.
am I right in understanding this show has been to the Fringe previously? You've been to the
No, it
no, no,
hasn't.
no. It's just been to other
I
festivals.
Yeah, it's been to other festivals. United Solo Festival, which is
Yeah.
what we did at Theater Row. Um, yeah.
So
I
it's been on
personally
a
have
journey,
been
this
to
show.
Fringe, though. Yes, it's definitely been a journey.
Mhm.
So this feels and when I wrote it, I actually had Fringe in my mind as, like, where I wanted to perform it. I don't know that I thought that when I was writing it, that was actually gonna be possible. Um, but, I just kept going with it, and here we are.
And so you're in the United States. Whereabouts are you based?
New York City.
You're in New York City. So what does the Edinburgh Fringe Festival mean to you coming from New York, coming from the United States? What do you how do you see it from abroad? I know how we view it over here. I know it's a massive thing in the UK for the theatre scene. Um, but yeah, from your perspective as an American, what do you how do you see it?
As an American, it feels like a really big deal. It feels like, the oldest theater festival in the world and the biggest. I studied abroad in college and in London, and, before I went to London, I visited Edinburgh, and the Fringe happened to be going on, and just, like, seeing all the artists and all of that was so inspiring to me. Um, so I'm so excited to go back and be a part of it myself. And I think most people that are interested in theater and all of that in the US, they know about Fringe.
Mm.
And, we used to have I don't even know if the New York Fringe Festival still exists. I'm not sure, but there are smaller fringe festivals around, the US, but yeah, the Edinburgh one feels like the peak, it feels like the best.
Yes, I wonder why that is. I wonder why it's got such a broad appeal throughout the world. I wonder if it is the length of time that it's been going on for.
I think
That it's
so.
well it's so well established, and like you say, it's like the pinnacle of where you can get to.
And then also probably, you hear about shows like Fleabag or, Baby Reindeer that, had their shows at Fringe and then went on to be this international success.
There does seem to be, the more I'm talking to people that are going to the Fringe, there is, anyone doing any creative endeavor, they do hope for it to go somewhere, to travel. They don't want to see it just happen once and that's the end of it. They would like
Yeah,
to see it move forward. And I think there has been a lot of stories of opportunity from the Fringe, hasn't there? And there's a lot of breakthrough
absolutely.
shows that have started there, like the ones that you've just mentioned.
I definitely feel like there is some pressure with that, um,
Mm.
because, there's a lot to do before you go to Fringe. Um, I think part of that is just I put pressure on myself because I felt like, if I'm going and my team is going with me, we have to make this the best that we can. Um, and what can we do to make that happen and all of that. But yeah, that the idea that there is all this opportunity does feel like a little bit of added pressure. But I feel like, as the performer, you kind of have to let go of that a little bit.
Tell me a little bit more about where you see this pressure coming from and why that's maybe important to what you're doing.
I think it's just because there's the potential for so much opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, you wanna present yourself in the best light, and you wanna do everything you can to make your show the best that it can be. But also there's the pressure of ticket sales, of course, especially since, we're coming from New York, and if it goes well, which it will, it's going to go well. Um, I kind of this is kind of a test to see, like, do I wanna take it to other places, whether that's in the UK or, I don't know, anywhere.
And I
It'll
guess a
be
test.
really exciting to see it with an international audience.
Mhm. A test for yourself personally as well, to see, like you say, this is such a big task, and it is taking that opportunity to take your shot with your work, take your shot with the
Yeah,
opportunity. But it's not like, I think you have to be fair on yourself and realize that there is a lot of other things going on there that also have
of
the same
course.
aims and ambitions. I think someone said to me this year there's going to be 3,500 plays within the
Yeah,
3 weeks.
yeah,
That's a lot of people up there, isn't it? Every
yeah,
show has at least one person on the stage and one person behind the scenes. So all of a sudden you've got 7,000 people up there looking for an opportunity. That's minimum 7,000. And then
and I
so
think in that regard, I am really happy that I have the experience of having done the United Solo Festival, um,
Mhm.
because I was able to, like, gather my materials and, um, lay the foundation for some of the marketing things. And even just, like, the simple stuff, like doing social media,
Mhm. Having done
which
the
is
other
so
shows,
important.
having
Yeah.
done the other festivals, do you see the other shows in any way as competition?
Um, the other shows that are performing at
Mhm.
Fringe,
Yeah,
um,
because you are all competing for the audience. There's only a certain number of people that have come there. You're all on the streets trying to get them in, um, and yeah, and
a
you all want to
little
take that
bit
opportunity.
a little bit, I think I view it as competition, but mostly I just, at least right now, feel like I'm so excited to meet so many amazing artists.
I think it's a bit like, I compare it to doing a marathon, doing something like this, that you may
Yeah,
be running a race and you may have that hope that then if you're running a race, you want to win and you want to cross the finish line first. But it's a long slog, so you've got to kind of do it together. You've got to kind of do it with the other people that are on the journey with you, and
absolutely.
find some teamwork, find some collaboration, and help each other out along this journey, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, which in that regard, I'm so lucky, to have found the team that I found. My director, Emma Schaefer, I've often joked, like, it feels sometimes like we're sharing a brain because we're just so in sync and on the same page, and I feel like that's such a rarity, but something that's, particularly for a solo show, really, really important.
And tell me a bit about your team then. This being your show that you've wrote, you're in it. Who else is coming along for the journey, and how did you find them?
So Emma will be there with me, and I also am bringing my co-producer, Geralt Seeker. He, um, is gonna be setting my mind at ease so I can just go fully into performer mode and all of that. On our team, we also have Melly Way. She's our sound or she's our sound designer, and Melly is amazing. They will be there virtually when we need them. But yeah, I honestly, like, I wish I could take everyone. It, like, kinda kills me that I can't. Um, and then we have 2 stage managers in New York that we're working with while we're here to help us stay on track for rehearsals and such.
And how did you pull all these people together for the show?
Um, Honestly, just referrals from people that I trusted, working in the New York theater scene. It's even that, it has kind of been a journey, but, I feel like as a young person working in this industry, you kind of collect people along the way, and, um, you remember them, like, if it was good to work with them, if, you know yeah, you remember the people you meet and the interactions that you had and whether or not you wanna collaborate in the future.
Yeah, and yeah, I think within the theatre world, you find the right people or not, don't you? You know when it's working, when the creativeness is being helped out, when you're pushing each other along in the right direction, or if someone's holding you back, it's very you pick up on it very quickly, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and at the start of our rehearsal process, that was one reason that I loved Emma so much was that, I had been in full playwright mode for so long that I knew I needed to, like, put the text back in my body, and we spent a lot of time doing movement work and character development stuff, which has was so, so helpful.
So we haven't even got on to asking you a little bit more about what the play's about, because I kind of took a summary from the title,
Yes.
from going back to your description and, where you got the idea from.
Let
But
me give
if
you my elevator pitch. How
get
about
that's
that?
it. Yeah, that sounds great. Yes.
So, Alexa is fed up with Amazon's bastardization of her name. She creates a support group for real Alexas to seek healing over the robot that has stolen their identity and to ultimately take on yet another mega conglomerate hell bent on turning women into objects. It's a comedic solo show. It involves audience participation. And yeah, I I think that people are gonna love it.
Tell me where the comedy comes in. What type of comedy is this?
Um, it's kind of hard to describe. Um, but, I think the comedy shines in the moments of audience participation. I think the comedy also comes in, like, the character of Alexa is going through a lot at the start of the play, although it might not immediately be obvious within the first scene, it becomes apparent, and, in real life, when we are dealing with something painful or difficult, we often, deflect and use comedy as kind of a way of hiding, and I think that the character of Alexa certainly does that.
Is there something with in the comedy that reminds me of some troubled comedians, that they say that the clown is often the saddest person in the room, that they're using that persona to protect themselves from all the darkness that's inside?
Um, yeah, I think it definitely uses that idea. Think I've lost the thread of your question a little bit. I apologize.
That's okay. It was quite a deep one. I was kinda going into the psychology of a comedian, that we want to make others laugh because perhaps we're so troubled sometimes.
I also think though, um, within my own writing, I've found that the comedy is often there whether I want it to be or not. And I think that just comes from my mentality of, like, life is hard enough. I wanna make people laugh.
Yeah. And what a wonderful thing that is to be able to do.
Mm.
'Cause it is
Yeah,
tough, isn't it? Life is tough, and it's, it's nice that we can find a place within theatre to find some escapism and maybe switch off from all of those real world troubles and the dramas that we have going on in our life,
yeah,
and absorb some entertainment that may make us laugh
yeah.
for a set period of time.
But at the same time, like, there's other things happening underneath, so, I mean, by the end, you kind of go on that journey and you realize you are taking things away. Um, for me, that's, opening up a dialogue about feminism, but also, um, combating the literal objectification of women. Um, because it's kind of absurd that and this is really the heart of the show. It's absurd that we've chosen to name an object after a woman, and that, this isn't the first time that we've done this. We've done this as a society with many different products. And what are the impacts of that on society?
Hmm. It's an interesting take, and I guess that can be the way that I've looked at that from a male perspective over the years, that naming something after a woman, I I just guess I've looked at that as a way of saying that's a thing of maybe that's a thing of beauty, maybe that's something that we can hold to a higher level because it's a woman by naming something that is useful and
But
that adds value
unfortunately
to our life. I'm
Mhm.
taking this from a male perspective that has no idea,
Absolutely.
that doesn't know what it's like to be in that position. So tell me the truth of that then, what that actually means.
Well, I mean, particularly with the Echo, it's
Mm,
a device that people yell at all day,
mm.
and they order around. And, it has a female sounding voice, it has a female name. So, what does that teach young people in particular about how women should be treated? And I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. I'm not going to say that there's one answer or any right answer. I think that that is for the audience to decide, and for, you know, people to decide for themselves. Um,
And what is there to decide whether it's intentional, whether it is intentionally
well,
done in
in
that
term
way?
in terms of what you're talking about, but
Mhm,
also, like, I think my goal is just to make people think about the fact that we're doing this,
mhm.
to make them think about other things in their lives that might have a similar trajectory in that regard. And then, like, hey, maybe we should do things a little differently for the future. Or maybe they think that it's good like that. And that's, I think, what the decision is, I guess. But it's kind of just more something to think about. And I'm more interested in just like putting that under a microscope.
And I guess that's the beauty of theatre all over, isn't it? That opportunity to give people a moment to think, to
Yeah.
like I say, from my perspective, I've never considered that. I've never considered why do I call the device Alexa and order it around. I've never considered the complications of that, implications, sorry. And that we should be doing that for future generations, the way that you know, younger generations are gonna grow up and experience that and maybe not distinguish the value in someone's name and gender.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because sometimes when these devices are going off, like in my everyday life, it becomes a thing where someone will say to me, "Well, I'm just gonna call you by your last name," or "I'm just gonna call you this or that," and I'm like, "But that's not my name. That's not what I wanna be
Mm,
called." Well, my last name is my name, but that's I want you to just say my name like you would for anyone else.
mm. So, am I right in thinking, like, coming off the subject slightly, my mind's just gone to this about the, like, the technical side. Alexas do have the option to be named different things, don't they, and have different voices. Is that right?
Yeah, they do. They
But I
do.
guess it's the pre-programmed and the advertised way, isn't it, that of doing it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
coming off of that, what are your hopes and dreams then for this show?
Um, I hope m my hopes and dreams would be that every performance at Fringe sells out. I would absolutely love to tour it in the US, or the UK afterward. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
And for you personally, as an actress, a writer, and performer, where do you see yourself going next, or is it all about Alexa Play?
Um, I am kicking around other ideas for other shows. They're still kinda too new to talk about, I think,
Mhm,
but right now, this is definitely my focus. I mean, I have I also work as an audiobook narrator and a voiceover artist. So that's I'm constantly doing that while I'm working on the show.
mhm.
Um, but right now, for me personally, in terms of my own artwork, I would say that this show is my focus.
That's good. So I was just wondering where I was having just a little moment there today. Actually, I don't have this often where my mind goes somewhere else, but I think as you know, I had a difficult morning this morning, and I think my mind was going to that. Um, but I do look forward to finding you at the Edinburgh Fringe. I do look forward to seeing this play. It does sound really interesting. Um, where, if anyone was interested in seeing this show, where do they come and find you? Where do they see it?
um, we'll be performing August 12th through 17th at 14:55 or 2:55 PM at Paradise in the Vault, the Annex, and you can follow us on Instagram or TikTok. It's Alexa Play NYC. You can get tickets on the Fringe website, and then, if people wanted to know more about me, my social media is all just my handle, Alexa Elmy. Um, or you can find out more about me on my website, alexaelmy.com. I make it pretty easy.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, it is easy to find, and I look forward to seeing it at the festival. I hope to see you there. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
catch up and we'll do a follow up and find out how things are going for
absolutely.
you during the show. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, the best of luck with it. I look forward to seeing it, and yeah, we'll see you at the Edinburgh Fringe. And if anyone has been watching or listening or joining us for this conversation, we appreciate you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.